Okay, I hope you're up for all of this. Now, I thought before we really dig deep into all this that I would take a few moments and explain the workflow process, because a lot of stuff is going to go into building our WordPress-based website. We're going to see some Photoshop. We're going to see some Illustrator. We're going to see some PHP. We're going to see some CSS. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff to get into. So the way that I've tried to organize this is in sort of a procedural workflow, if that makes sense. So we're going to move from one design stage to the next design stage, complete that stage, and then move to the third stage, and so on, right? So let me kind of detail things out for you here. We're going to start off in, of all places, Adobe Illustrator. And what we're going to do inside Illustrator is we're going to complete what's referred to as the design's wireframe. And all the wireframe is going to do, and of course I'll get into all kinds of crazy detail about this once we get there, is we're simply going to create the main layout blocks, the main layout containers. Imagine we're building things with simple containers, like Lego bricks almost, right? And we're going to put all that together. And then once we have the wireframe down and we've made some critical design choices and perhaps we've gotten a little bit of feedback from the client, then what we'll do is we'll move on to the next design phase, which is still going to be inside Adobe Illustrator. But what we'll do is we'll start applying a little bit of design to the wireframe, specifically things like colors, fonts, and perhaps some imagery, some graphics, right? So we're going to pull it along inside Illustrator as far as we can go, but eventually we're going to hit a bit of a brick wall. We won't be able to go any further inside Illustrator. So then what we'll do is we'll move our design over into Adobe Photoshop. And it's inside Photoshop where we're going to start to apply some of our photography that we're going to use for our layout. So you'll see how all of that plays out. But then once again, we're going to hit a bit of a hard stop inside Photoshop. We won't be able to go any further. We'll get the design pretty much complete inside Photoshop. And then we go, all right, well, how do we go from Photoshop over to WordPress? Well, that's kind of the next major stage or phase inside the workflow here, is we're basically going to take everything that we've built inside Photoshop and start extracting it, extracting some of those graphics, building the PHP, building the necessary CSS and HTML. And of course, that's all going to be incorporated in the WordPress phase, if you will, of our workflow process. So as you can see, there's a lot to get to. We're going to go from Illustrator wireframing, Illustrator design, Photoshop design, and then finally over to WordPress, which again is where we're going to find some code, PHP, CSS, and HTML. So I hope you're up for it all. Lots and lots of fun awaits.